What's up, guys? It is Modern Craftsman Monday. Unfortunately, Tyler and John are out this week, so I'm holding down the fort here. And this week, I have Dave West, a.k.a. The Remodeling Dude, a.k.a. Born Imagery. He is on the podcast this week. He's actually shooting. He shot our twilight shots of that Newton job. You guys, I know you saw it. And we actually shot some twilight shots of our Lake Drive project. But we have an interesting conversation about why he left remodeling and went into photography, and what drove him away from the remodeling industry, specifically around stress and mental health, which is a nice follow-up to Peter's podcast. It's going to be a good one.
Hey, this is David West, and I...
Keep going.
Formerly known as the Remodeling Dude, currently Mr. Born Imagery.
Mr. Born Imagery? I think it's just Born Imagery.
It's funny that sometimes I'll call people up, and I'll go, "Hey, this is Dave West over at Meadowview Construction. I mean, Born Imagery. How you doing?"
Really? Still?
It's dude. I was doing this since 1997.
It's funny when you called me earlier when you were across the pond. I came up as Meadowview.
No way.
Yeah. Well, because I had you saved that way. But when it came up, I totally forgot that was the name of your company because I've always known you as the Remodeling Dude.
Interesting. Now, I remember you when you had 100 followers.
That is probably true. I think that's when we did the tail lock.
No, it was before that. But I remember when you...
Have we met before that?
No. I think it was just you doing decks and me watching your work and being like, that guy's kind of like, I can see him rising above rising like cream to the top one of these days.
I remember, because you live in way north, right?
Yeah, I'm up by Merrimack, Mass, by Newburyport.
And I remember, I don't even know if we were married at the time. I was like, oh,
you weren't.
Oh, so I was like, oh yeah, Dave's cooking breakfast.
Yeah, that's right. When you come up to my house. Yeah.
And she was like, have you met him? I'm like, no. She's like, will you please call me when you get there?
Your soon-to-be wife was worried about you?
She just thought it was weird. Just because, I'd never met you nor Brian. And why did we go up there? Was it for the tail lock?
Yeah, you guys...
We put it on yours, right?
Yeah, we installed it on my Chevy van.
Yeah.
He drove up in his little Mini and brought his new product out. That was a really good product, by the way.
Yeah. I actually, it's funny because there wasn't a lot of the box truck Mercedes, but every time I see one driving on the road, I always look to see if it's mine with the tail lock.
Why did you get rid of yours?
The city.
It was too big?
It was too big for... It was huge. It was a 14-foot box with a beaver tail on it.
But I thought that's why you got that, because it was smaller than the bigger GMC.
With the trailer.
Oh, that's right.
But that was also when it was just me. When I started growing, I didn't need every single tool in the truck. So at that point, I was like, all right, I can shrink down, be more...
Mm-hmm.
The vans that we have now are much easier for the city.
What are you driving now? The Sprinter type ones, smaller ones?
The regular length Sprinters. So we have 3 of them in the field.
Those work out pretty good.
Yeah.
I was on a job a couple of months ago with Ian St. George, and he had just gotten one, and he was saying that they were having a shortage of them made in this country.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I guess there was they were only making so many of them.
I remember trying to order black, and that was like the biggest deal. It was like $8,000 more.
Better off getting a wrap, right?
So we got the cabinet one wrapped.
Nice.
Made a mistake on that.
Zach was telling me you guys are having some transportation challenges with the shop cabinetry and such.
Well, so going back to the box truck, I wish I kept it for that.
Just a shell?
Yeah, because the vans, they can only fit so much.
Yep.
So now we're talking, if we were finishing in the house, it'd be one thing because the cabinets would leave and go to the job site.
Yep.
We need to deliver them to the finisher and then pick them up, assemble them, and then deliver them to the job. So outsourcing delivery would be easier if we were finishing in house because there's literally a cabinet shipping company down the street that all they do is pick up from cabinet shops and bring them to job sites. But that would be so expensive for us to do it 3 different times.
Totally. I mean, is your finisher nearby?
It's 35 minutes.
That's exactly about what I had.
That's tough.
And we had all of our cabinet parts shipped out to be finished too. Actually, it worked out really nice because towards the end, when I had my shop in Georgetown, the guy that was doing all my finishing was about a mile away. But interestingly enough, he was also one of my staunchest competitors.
Yeah, in cabinet making.
Both. Yeah, Ken with Premier Builders was one of my competitors, but we're friendly. We were then. We still are. In fact, I do his photography right now. But it was funny because I used to every once in a while, like I would lure one of his employees away, and they would come work for me, and that happened 3 or 4 times. And then towards the end of my time in business, he actually took one of my guys, so it was like payback. And Mike, the guy that he ended up with, is phenomenal, and he still works there. And he's like one of the best guys I ever had. I really miss that part.
The people? The
people. I really had some incredible people. Just guys like your Ken, and I mean, I don't know Zach really well, but he seems like they're all just like really good quality people.
Yeah. So we were, for those who listen, we were out in the shop kind of BSing for a little bit and decided to come in here and have the conversation in front of a mic instead.
I don't know why we didn't start in here.
I know. Well, I don't. I guess I was questioning it, but now I'm glad we're recording. But that's, I had made the comment that at least once a week, I not reconsider, but question myself as to why I'm doing this. With all the stress, with all the pieces, we talked about the fact that there's so many moving parts and people that you're accounting for, and that not that we're like asking a client, being like, yeah, but I know I'm not on target, but look at everything I've put together. Like, we're not asking for that. We're just, it's more so just the understanding of we as individuals should really respect and understand what we are accomplishing. And the fact that we have this human error mixed in times 50, 75 people on a job site. You made the comment that it's more than that. It's their families. It's the client, the interior designer, the architect, the lady that ordered the faucet wrong, the tile company, the shipping company that, dropped the material and it's broken. We tend to be optimists with schedule and budget, and in this industry, not accounting for the human error. And what my point with that is, the comment you made about the people is that's what you miss the most. That is exactly why I stopped considering why, or stopped questioning myself as to why I do this. And it's because of that, the people. And, you're absolutely right. The people that, like Zach, like Ken, like the rest of my team, there's 14 of them now.
You have 14 people.
Yeah.
Damn.
And they're all of that caliber.
You've grown so fast.
Yeah. I mean, it was just me and one. And then I would say Mike's my oldest employee with me now. And he was really the tipping point into me removing myself from the day-to-day carpentry, because I was like, all right, before Mike, two good friends of mine worked for me. They weren't technically carpenters, right? We would work together and we would accomplish it, but it was never a point where I could walk away and the job get done.
Yeah, you were driving the ship. You were the guy getting the lumber. You were the guy meeting the customers at night. You were the guy driving the trailer to the job every day.
Right.
That's a lot. How do you have a family and a life and friends? Well, you already told me you don't have friends.
I do not. That's why I record a podcast. That's exactly it. I mean, I think that was similar time as, when Mike came on and when we had our first kid, had Marley. And that's when I realized that I can't sustain a life working 7 days a week and have a child. Nor was my wife going to allow that.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't still be married if you kept that pace up.
No way. Well, I say that, but I feel like it would have been a very tough marriage.
You'd have to be incredible in so many other ways to make up for that.
Right, and I am probably mediocre at best. But I don't know. It's the kid thing. The kid thing. Having kids changes it.
I don't have any kids. I don't know what that's like.
You have dogs, though.
Try telling that to people with kids. Oh, dogs is the same as having kids.
No, I think dogs are more difficult.
I don't think. Really? Do you really believe that? You have a dog?
I have 2.
And you have 2 kids.
I don't know. I think the dogs are more annoying. I think that's what it is. We always said that when we got married. When we had kids, we would not get rid of our dogs. And then once we had kids, we were like, we could totally get rid of these dogs.
Yeah.
Knowing that we were like, we really couldn't. But how annoying they become when 2 little humans are running around the house like maniacs.
Well, it's just my wife and I. We have like 2 dogs and a cat, and it's manageable.
Yeah.
But if we had kids, I don't know how I could handle it. I mean, I'm literally like, I feel like sometimes I'm a stay-at-home dad, where my wife works the 9 to 5 every day, and I'm home a lot during the day. I do my editing all day, and then sometimes I'm out till 10 o'clock at night, so I don't have like a fixed schedule. But man, I feel like Mr. Dad sometimes, stay-at-home dad.
I guess pets, kids are definitely harder because there's way more responsibility behind them and more stuff you have to do.
You can't put little Johnny in a
crate.
In a crate, yeah.
Not near a window where someone can see it at least. But that is, I mean, anyone that's listening to this is going to be like, no, you're an idiot. Kids are way harder.
Absolutely.
But I think I always joke, my father gave me the best and worst advice in life, and that was that when I ran into something that was difficult, I told you the story about how when my wife was pregnant, she lost her job.
Yeah.
And she was going to be a stay-at-home mom because we were going to have a kid soon. I remember calling my dad and being like, Dad, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I can't sustain that. Like, I'm not going to be able to afford it. Like, I don't even know how I'm going to afford a kid now.
Yep.
And his answer was always, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, their parents always say that.
And I always hated when he said that because it was like, that's not what I need to hear.
It just
more.
adds more pressure now.
Right. And now I look back on it, like he said it literally, like when I started my company, I'm like, what if I don't have clients? He's like, you'll figure it out. And I always felt like it was a cop out, but now looking back, it's like, no, he was exactly right. Like that's the whole.
And look how it's turned out. You probably don't have too much trouble finding clients, and you got a nice crew. Well, you don't have trouble, but you have 14 mouths to feed and their families to feed. That's where the trouble is.
Yeah.
I know when I reached 10 employees, I was scratching my head. I didn't know what to do. Like I was just
how big did you
out
get?
Of my mind. I had 10 people.
10?
Yeah, that includes my cabin shop.
So how is that company structured?
So, I started in 97 and I kind of prescribed to the lead carpenter theory. Mm-hmm. And the way that worked is it started out as me, and I figured, all right, well, I'm going to work my tail off for like a good solid year and then save up some money, bring on a new guy next year. Like in year 2, I'll add 1 employee.
Sure.
And then every year after that, I'll add another person. That was kind of my initial thought process.
Yep.
And I didn't stick to that exactly, but more or less, after 10 years, I had nearly 10 people. And then at that point, our focus changed a little bit, kind of like what you do. What you decided to do is have your own shop. That's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
We had, I bought a new house in a nice affluent town so that my wife could have a horse.
Okay.
And of course, she had the horse, I had the shop. So our cars never made it into the garage.
Yep.
That was my workshop, and that was around 2004. And within like 2 years, I'm like, this is just not working. It's 26 by 26 is just not enough space to have a real workshop. But we did some really nice work, and some of our projects that included those cabinets won awards for like NARI and Cody awards.
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't get me going about awards. That's like another whole podcast. Best of Boston. We won that one year. Big whoop, right?
Well, okay. So now I'm going to get you on it.
What do you mean?
Well, what's your thought behind them?
Awards?
Yeah. Because I have actually pretty strong thoughts on them.
I know it's funny. We kind of talked about this before, didn't we?
It's interesting. My thoughts have changed because it's not me anymore.
It's not you winning the award, it's your team, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. And I think I think it's Christopher Peacock.
The Cabinet Lion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty sure, I could be wrong. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure he refuses to accept an award
Really?
because it's just not him.
Well, he doesn't need to. He charges $180,000 for a kitchen
But
or whatever.
why can't you accept an award, right?
Yeah.
But I've always said to John, it's like, I get the magazines. I get them. I get it works. I get that side of the media, and not the argument, but the conversation is always, well, I'm not going to attract the clients that are going to hire me to build a $50 million house through Instagram. But I'm also not trying to attract them through Instagram. I'm trying to create awareness through Instagram, because they're not going to hire me to build them a $50 million house because they saw my project in Boston Home,
Right.
or any magazine, right? I think it's great. Like, if our projects end up in a magazine, absolutely, I'll share it. Like that's exciting. I'm not actively looking for it. It drives me a little crazy that I can't post photos of projects that I finished because they're trying to get published. Because sometimes these projects, by the time I can share them, they might be out of style.
Yep.
Or maybe I just don't, or like, hey, that's not what we do anymore. Things like that.
It's funny you mentioned the whole publishing part, because sometimes people ask me if I work with magazines, when I take photographs, and I actually don't work with magazines that much.
Do you think that's hindering the photography side of your business?
No, not at all. Is it something I want to do? Of course, I want to shoot and I want to have my work on covers of magazines. I think
I think you're similar to me. Is that you want your stuff to end up on a cover of a magazine because it's worth it, not because you poke them and it was like, hey, I'm Born Imagery. Hey, and just poke, and that's the issue I have with the awards and magazines. I can't wait to have someone reach out to me and be like, you a-hole, like, I've been trying to reach out to you. But that's the issue I have, is that it shouldn't be a popularity contest. It should be, no, the work speaks for itself.
Do you know Bruce Irving?
No.
Bruce used to be the executive producer of This Old House.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Back in the day.
Yep.
I don't know when he left, probably like mid-2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to know Bruce, just acquaintances, and he kind of got to know our work pretty well. And that's how we got Best of Boston, because I think Bruce was on the awards committee, and I think he became aware of us and saw our work and really liked us and liked what we believed in. Same kind of culture you guys
right.
have.
It wasn't this thing where you were spending all this money in ads and like
Nope.
putting it out. It's
never advertised once. We didn't submit for it.
Right.
We didn't ask for it.
Like, we're up for Best of Boston Rising Star.
Nice.
And we're against two other builders, and it's I know. I shouldn't say that. I don't know how they're going to go about sharing the fact that they're being nominated, right? A bunch of people messaged me like, hey, congrats, you're nominated, blah blah blah. And for probably a week or two, I was like, I'm just ignoring this because I just want our work to speak for itself.
I hope the other one wasn't John.
No, it wasn't. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, this isn't Nick Schiffer. This is NS Builders, and NS Builders is 14 people. So I'm not going to promote the crap out of it and ask people, hey, you got to vote. But You know what? My team deserves me to share it and be like, guys, we're nominated. Check this out. I tagged everyone in it. Every one of them got excited and shared it. And that's what I was like, this is what it's about. Like, my team wants to get excited. The way they're going to share and promote, awesome. But from there, this isn't going to be, I'm going to give, and then be like, all right, now vote for me. Now I want them to be attracted to the work. I want the work to speak for itself and get to a point where we're just like you said, we're not submitting for it. It's like someone else is submitting for it. Our projects have won awards And we've taken no recognition from it because maybe a vendor has submitted it.
Right.
Like our name, I shouldn't say that. Our name is associated with it, but we're not there, like, oh my God, look at our project. But we know the work is speaking for itself. We just wanted to do it at that level as well. So that's the love-hate with the awards, is that I can't stand the fact that they become popularity contests.
They do. They absolutely do. And I think just because you get an award doesn't mean that you're better than,
No.
99% of the other people. It just means that you were in the right place at the right time.
But you know what's unfortunate is people outside of our industry, who are the people that we're typically trying to attract as clients, don't see it the way we see it.
I don't know if that's true. Completely. I don't know if that's completely true. All right, so we won a couple of awards. Do you think it helped us get business?
I don't know.
I don't think it did. I think it hurt us. I think it absolutely hurt us.
Hurt? How?
We became known as too expensive. Like,
that's interesting.
Meadowview Construction. Yeah, I've heard of them. They're really, really good. We can't afford them because they're too expensive.
That is interesting.
It became part of the whole thing. Like it wasn't just because we won an award. It was just part of the whole persona.
We've gotten that is that, we didn't reach out because you're too expensive.
They just assumed it.
Right.
Why?
Because it is recognition, right?
But for you, it wasn't because you were posting your awards every day. It was something else.
It's because the level of detail that we're putting into work, or the level of, like, what we're sharing, like that is a real conversation. But I guess the argument would be, well, don't you want to work for people that are spending more money? Or see, I go back and forth with this. Is that, do I really want to work? I shouldn't say that. Is the right move for me to concentrate on the top percent, where the market is smaller than the middle, where it's like we could be very profitable and stay in the mid-range market, the middle class market, I should say. Mm-hmm. That's where the majority people are. But what really is driving working for the top 5, top 1%ers? And I think that what that is really the level of craftsmanship and detail we can put into projects that we can get excited about. Because you ask anyone, anyone that's working for that top 5 to 1%, it's not necessarily more profitable.
No,
and more times than not, it's less profitable.
Their expectations are through the roof.
It's a headache. The schedule, like I walked a job with a subcontractor a couple weeks ago, and I was talking. He had asked, "What's your goal? Who do you want to work for? What projects do you want to build?" And I started talking about it. He's like, "Dude," and he started laughing. I'm like, "I know what you're gonna say. That it's not what it's cracked up to be." He's like, "That's exactly what I was gonna say." And I said, "I understand that. So if I can correct what I said, who I want to work for are people that value the effort and the time that we put into things, and we're compensated fairly."
I think you're in the exact right market for that. You might think like the $2 million market is the high end, but it really isn't.
I know.
Like the $2 million market in Newton and Wellesley is like the mid market, right?
Yeah.
And where I live, $2 million is like the top of the top.
Right.
So you're right. I think you're in the sweet spot.
It's funny because on a previous podcast, someone was talking about the $1 million. Like it's funny how many homes now are $1 million homes.
Yeah, starter homes.
Right. And it's like, oh, we're building $1 million house. It's like, okay. And, there's a huge part of this country that's, is saying right now that, dude, our market's like 400 or 500, which I can't relate to. I've been in Boston my whole life. This is the market that we're dealt with. And, we're fortunate to have an affluent market. But the fact that $1 million house is still a client that, they're spending all this money because they're mortgaging the hell out of it. We're not going to go in there and then renovate their kitchen for $500,000. No way.
No.
It's, it's still, we'd like to do our kitchen for $30,000. And it's like, we can't.
We can build your pantry.
Yeah, we can't touch it. It's like, it's just not the way we're.
So maybe like five or 6 years ago, I remember hearing a situation where this really high-end builder was building a project for one of the richest people in the state.
Mm-hmm.
He's an auto broker, auto dealer, huge. Like everyone knows who he is.
Sure.
So this company was building this project, and I don't know why they had cash flow issues. I mean, that's not my business, but I know they had cash flow issues. And you might think, all right, I want to be that company that builds this house for this one of the richest people in the state. But they had problems just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Except their problems were 100 times greater. And when they lost money, they went out of business, and they left all these other big companies, big subs, high-end big subs, all got stiffed. And they all lost a lot of money. They all went down together.
Well, that's exactly right. It's like, that's what we're talking about in the shop, is that every client, no matter what, every contractor, no matter what, deals with cash flow issues at some point. And there's ways to correct that, whether you put systems in place. But it's always going to be this roller coaster ride. And no matter if you're in that lower mid-range or high-end market, it's still the same percentage. And you're basically playing with more cash. And it's a bigger risk.
I don't think I made more money when I had 10 guys than when I had one guy.
So what do you think drove you to keep hiring?
Well, we got busier,
yeah.
Just like you guys. We got a lot busier. Once our name got out there, we got really good at what we did. I kept hiring good people because we were busier. I don't think I answered the question earlier about the lead carpenter system. So what we did is we'd actually added another guy or two each year, and I tried to have it kind of works in threes. I think things in life work in threes. Mm-hmm. Lead carpenter systems kind of work in threes. You bring a lead carpenter on,
yep.
He or she runs that job, and then eventually you have 3 lead carpenters. You don't typically go 4 lead carpenters under the owner's supervision, it's typically you reach 3, and then you need like a project manager.
Yep.
So that's what happened. I reached 3. I was towards the end of the peak of the 2008 crash when that happened. Mm-hmm. I was up to 10 people, and I had 3 leads going. And my project manager was formerly a lead of mine. I promoted him to project manager, and he was an exceptional lead carpenter. Not a great project manager, and it's probably because I didn't know how to teach him to be such. I didn't have the experience to teach him how to be a project manager. I could do it all day long, but I couldn't teach him to do it.
What do you think what was his biggest downfall as a project manager? Like, what was the one thing that you remember him doing and you being like, if I could just figure out how to teach you?
I don't know. It was just lots of little things. And he was like one of the best employees I ever had.
Sure.
The most loyal, the hardest working, did some of the best work I've seen ever.
But there's a big difference between lead carpenter and PM.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to manage everybody just like we do, just like we did before we decided to turn the reins over to a project manager. The transition is never seamless. I don't know how people do it, to be honest with you.
I think the biggest thing that I'm constantly trying to figure out is how do I get my guys in the management role to communicate things the way I would.
Well, you spoke about that last. Oh no, I'm thinking of back to the podcast when you spoke to Ken.
Yeah,
there was a lot of discussion about that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and John brought up the point that I'm micromanaging him. Yeah. I'm like let him do it and figure it out. And I do a lot. And it's, speaking today, with Nick, we're dealing with a subcontractor, not one of ours, one that a client had previously hired that we've kind of taken over the job. It's a takeover. We're managing. And the communication is difficult because he's not an easy person to work with. We're kind of dancing around some things, and it's like, we're going to get him on the phone. He wants to talk on the phone, so we talk on the phone. Then we send a recap email, and then he replies to the recap email saying that we're lying. He never said any of this. Ouch. And it goes around in this circle. It's like, all right, we have to figure out how to bring this back down to, let's get everyone on the same page. And, prior to starting my company, I was an assistant project manager for a commercial company, and everything was very you need to make sure what you say, you can press send and feel comfortable that none of that crap is going to come back at you. And I got that's the biggest thing I took away from that job is that making sure what I was communicating was clear. It wasn't, it was clear and concise, but it was also not, I wasn't blaming someone for something. I wasn't claiming that someone, like, it was just very political, I guess would be the right word to say. It was very clean. It was like, all right, like, it's all this positivity. It's all like action items. It's like, there's no blame. There's no, I didn't say that, you said this, or like there's no back and forth. There's no banter. You don't even recognize the BS that was in the previous email. And it's, you're just like sliding the BS aside and just like, hey, let's get down to business, man. Like and that's, none of my guys do a bad job at it. And I say Mike, Nick, and Molly, none of them do a bad job at it. But it's one of those things that we constantly work on. Like we have phone conversations about it. Like, hey, how would you handle this? How would you reply to that? What should I do with this? What should I do with that? Hey, could you look at this? And I do the same thing, or I did the same thing when I was in their role. When someone was above me, before I was sending an email, I'm like, am I doing this right? Or am I about to get my ass kicked? Because I remember one of the guys I worked with at my previous job, I remember him telling a story. I hope he listens to this. I remember him telling me a story that something happened on one of the construction sites, and I don't think anyone got hurt, but something fell from a building. I'm pretty sure it just fell on the ground, and it wasn't a big deal, but it was just like, it was known that it fell, okay? And he didn't know how to react to it, and the guy that worked above him said, you should send that email. You should send an email letting everyone know, like, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And the way he told the story was like, I sent that email, and he looked at me, he goes, that was a stupid idea. And he walked out of the room. And I remember hearing that story, and my heart like sank for him. And I was like, dude, like, if my boss was above me, and what it in my mind, it's like, all he has to say is like, I never told him to send that, because there's no, it's like this formal backup thing, right? Like, everyone's like covering their ass.
He told him to send it, and then he said it was a stupid idea.
I mean, allegedly, I wasn't there, right? But this is a story I heard. I'm like, and I remember, and it caused a shit storm. And like, about like, the whole situation was just a big deal. It was like, why wasn't this brushed on the rug? Blah, blah, blah. Now we have to do this report. Blah, blah, blah. Safety officer is going to come out. OSHA, blah, blah, all this stuff. And it wasn't by the book, by the paper. Yeah, you were supposed to, but was it necessary? Probably not. And it was just interesting to hear that. I don't know how we went down this road, but it was just like, when someone they're not advocating for you, and they're putting you in a position. Oh, I guess it goes back to when we have phone conversations. It's like, getting them to understand like what that communication is going to do for the situation. Especially recently, I said earlier, professionally and personally, like, I really consider what comes out of my mouth when I'm talking to someone.
You have to.
Friends, my wife, like my employees, like anyone. I really, really like. I probably overthink what I'm gonna say, because and especially in social settings, I'm like, will this bring value to the conversation? And if it doesn't, I literally will just not. I just won't. I'm just like, all right, it's out. If it's negative, I won't even consider it. Like, it's just absolutely put it away. It's not worth. Like, there's no positivity coming out of it. But what I said out in the shop is that can be toxic, because
by holding it all in.
Holding it in.
Because at the end of the day, you gotta get that out. It's the whole mental health thing that you were talking about.
Yeah, with Pete Jonak from Spire.
Yeah,
like, that's it. For the conversation's sake, that's the right thing to do. But how do you, like, Johnny had asked, I think it was the same episode, Johnny had asked, well, Nick, what do you do? Like, he goes to hockey, and that's how he releases, his stress.
That's why I didn't see John last night, because he had a hockey match with his kids.
Funny,
good for him.
We're even talking about hockey, even though he's not on the podcast. But he had asked me, and I didn't know. And I was like, I think I work my truck. He goes, so you buy parts and work on your truck? That's how you release stress? I'm like, No, I guess not. I guess I drive my truck. He's like, nope. And that was one of the times I drove home. I'm like, what do I do? But
wow, that's a good question. If you ask me that right now, I don't know what I would
like,
say.
what do you do when you're like when you're just uber stressed out? What do you go for a hike, a walk?
I don't get stressed anymore.
Nothing. There's no way.
Not that much. You wouldn't believe how little stress I have right now compared to the way my life used to be. It's shocking. I don't know.
So, is that why you gave up remodeling?
I guess technically it isn't, but it's one thing that I don't miss. I don't miss the fact that I was under stress so much. I mean, I used to get like heart pains once in a while.
I've never had like body ache issues.
Oh my God.
In this past year, like my neck, I remember for a month straight, I felt as though I couldn't crack my neck. And I was like, why? My wife's like, it's got to be your pillow. I'm like, so I got a different pillow. And then I'm like, I can't get my neck to feel like, I feel like I'm walking around with my shoulders up against my neck.
And when was the last time you had a tool belt on?
I have no idea.
Like it's a couple of years, right?
Yeah. And
so you think it's that coming around?
no, I think it was stress.
Yeah.
I absolutely knew it was stress.
Yeah. You hold it up in your neck.
And I'm like, all right, that's exactly. They were like, oh, you carry stress in your neck.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. And I'm like, okay, how do I get rid of it?
You don't have 14 employees is one thing.
I know. Well, you guys aren't fired. So I was like, all day I would be like, all right, put the shoulders down, sit up straight, sit up. I would remind myself all this stuff. Like, all right, twist the neck a little bit. All right. And I would and I'm like, this isn't helping. And my wife laughs at this, but when I bought the 68 C10, I went to the registry, got the plates, and I was like, screw it, taking a personal day. And I drove that thing all around town.
Six hour cruise.
3-speed, driving it in and out, like around the city, get coffee. And I got home and I walked in and I looked at I'm like, holy shit, my neck's fine.
Big ass smile on your face.
Yeah, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I swear to God, my neck, like I literally, my neck is totally back to normal. She goes, oh, let me guess, your truck? I'm like, I'm not saying the truck fixed my neck. I think what I'm saying is the fact that like it was just carefree and my mind just kind of dumped everything out because I had to focus on what I was doing because it doesn't have power steering and I'm trying to parallel park this thing.
Yep.
And I think that's why I made that comment that driving the truck or working on the truck, like, because I really like cars. I've worked on cars ever since I've had one, and I've modified them, build them. That's fun to me. But I don't think I don't do it enough to consider it something I do for stress relief.
It's good that you have something though. A lot of people don't have that.
Right.
I used to ride my motorcycle. That was fun.
Do you still have it?
No.
Why?
I sold it so I could afford to buy a house.
Okay. Why did you give up remodeling? Let's go down that road.
All right. You want to go down that road?
Yeah, I do.
So I'm going to say like around 2010.
Okay.
I got divorced. And it wasn't my finer moment in life.
Sure.
No one likes to get divorced, right?
Right.
But
how many people were you? 2010. I'm going to go back. So 2008, I think you started letting go of people, right?
Yeah, I peaked in 2008. I definitely peaked. My life peaked.
Yeah.
And one by one, I had to let guys go.
Yep.
After the market crash, it was just like one job ended. Everybody went from that job to the next job. So, you can't have 7 people in one job.
Right.
So eventually it's like, all right, I just need one lead, a couple of guys. And we just had to pare it down one by one. And eventually it was last man standing, and that was me. And I had to put my tool belt back on. And I was still married at that point, like around 2009. I think I had a lot of stress. I was trying to run all the jobs myself.
As you were letting guys go and you got down to the one person.
Yeah.
What was going on in your mind? Because I feel...
It's horrible.
In what way?
You feel like you're letting your family go. One of the guys was my family.
Yeah.
I had to let my cousin go. No, I didn't let my cousin go because of the economy. It was something else. But It's just like letting your family go. You know, the guys that aren't as good, you still feel bad about that, even though
Sure.
they're not your top guys. You still feel bad about that.
I remember hearing someone telling me that if you grow and then you rapidly decline in the amount of employees, the likelihood of you coming back from that is so small.
I believe that.
And that's frightening to me, because it's like, well, why? I mean, what if you just want to change? And I remember having the conversation, like, yeah, but if you just want to change, you're going to get rid of people and you shrink your company's doomed. And I don't know, I don't believe it, but I have no reason to, I have no experience with it. So that's why I asked what was going on in your mind when you were going from 10 down to 1. Did you feel as though
You know what was going through my head? I was thinking about my $3,300 a month mortgage. Like, how am I going to pay that?
Sure.
Yeah, I want to keep Dan and Mike and Joe and all these other people busy, and I want to keep them, and I want to lay them off so that as soon as they get that next big job, in air quotes, that next big job, I can just bring them all back. But those jobs didn't come. They didn't come back. I didn't get those. I always had a $300,000 job going.
Yeah.
I usually had a $100,000 job, a $300,000 job, $1 million job.
Right.
You know, during that 2008, we did over $2 million, and I was just so excited. Like, my life is going to be great. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be making all this money.
Yep.
And then when that economy hit, which I expect it will again, I just had to let everyone go one at a time. And when it finally became just me again, I had to put my tool belt back on and kind of relearn it, because I put my tool belt back in the shop around 2001. That was my last job that I did, and then I had to pick it back up again in 2009. So
it's a long time.
Can you imagine not doing carpentry for 8 years and then
trying to go back?
All of a sudden now you have to go back to running jobs again?
Right. And
you have to do estimates at 9 at night instead of during the day like you used to do them?
Do you, as far as, let's go back to 2008 when you were 10 guys and you started laying people
I'm going to answer your question eventually, by the way.
And I'm going to keep interrupting. This is what I do. But do you think, looking back, you could have reacted to the market differently?
I didn't know any better. I mean, my whole time in business was a slow, steady climb up. It was $100,000 a year, $300,000 a year,
right.
$600,000, $800,000, $1 million, $2 million. It was always up, slow and steady. I didn't have a big jump, but I didn't know how to react. I'd never been through a recession.
Sure.
We had 9/11, that was horrible.
Yep.
From my business, but we still had jobs. We kept everyone busy. I might have cut down to 5 guys instead of 10 guys, but I still had a crap ton of work, and
right.
I just didn't know better. I didn't have the tools. We didn't have social media. I think that was a whole. If I had social media at my disposal, it might have been a different game. When 2008 came around, I went to some local, networking group, and I don't know, somebody talked me into talking about how to use social media, and I said, okay, I guess I better join up LinkedIn and MySpace, and see what this is all about, so I can talk about it at this meeting. So I went home and I joined LinkedIn.
Yeah,
and I absorbed myself into that for about a couple weeks, whatever. And before you know it, my buddy was calling me Link, because I went from having 0 followers in Link to 2,500. And I really took to social media really well. And I did the same thing for Facebook. And I started doing that in 2008, 2009. If I had that tool at my disposal early on, it could have been a different game.
That's what I guess that's what I'm getting at, is that I feel, and I don't know, I've never been through a recession, right? Not NS Builders. But my thought is that I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what could someone do differently in a time where a market changes or shifts, or there's a recession? Your marketing budget's probably one of the first things you're like, all right, cut that.
But that's when you need it the most.
And that's what I'm getting at, is do you, is that an immediate knee-jerk reaction where it's like, all right, stop spending money on Facebook ads, don't put any more ads in magazines because stuff's changing, the economy's crashing, where it's like, all right, if everyone's doing that and now you have an opportunity to be in front of more people, it's like you really should be marketing yourself at a higher level. But it's, it seems counterproductive because you're spending more money when you're making less in the hopes that you're doing the opposite of what
but you can't be spending money on marketing and think that it's going to make an immediate effect on your business. You have to be spending the money when the market's going really well. That's when you need to be spending the money. Right now. When people say, "Oh, I'm so busy. I got a year's worth of work. I don't need to advertise. I don't need to, I don't need to have photography done. I don't need to spend money on marketing and advertising." I don't think that's true. I think you need to be spending it when the market's really good.
I say all the time, it's consistency.
Yeah.
Just you have to remain consistent.
Brand messaging.
All right, go back to your story. So 2008, you're starting to.
So
you're down to one.
I'm down to one, and I got divorced in 2010. Still down to one. Mm-hmm. I've had my shop for a couple of years now. It was a 5,000 square foot shop. It was a nice shop. Yeah. It was like your shop, just twice as big. All nice equipment. You know, I told you when I go all in, I go all in.
Right.
And I went all in. I spent $200,000 to get the shop set up, and I thought that this was going to be the answer.
This was before. When did you build that shop?
Like 06.
Oh, okay.
6, 7. So I had it for like 3-4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I had a couple of guys in the shop, just like you do. It seemed like I didn't have enough guys though. Like you have a couple guys in the shop.
4 on the cabinet side, 2 of them full time in the
couple
shop.
thousand square feet. That's a nice amount.
Yeah.
At times I had one guy in a 5,000 square foot shop, way too big.
Right.
But my overhead wasn't much. You know, I literally had a $1,500 a month rent, which wasn't too bad, and then a few other things. It wasn't too bad at all. But I dropped all that cash to initially to fund that shop, and I spent all my time keeping the shop busy because that was the big monthly nut. I had to pay for that shop.
Right.
You know, I had 3 vans. I had all the festool just like you guys do. It's crazy. Yeah. I see you and me. I feel like I'm looking at me like 15 years ago. And then so fast forward a little bit, I met an amazing woman. Her name was Stacy. And we hit it off. She lived in Worcester at the time. I lived here in the North Shore. It was a heck of a commute, but we made it work. And about a year later, we decided to move in together. We eventually decided to get married. And literally a week after we got married, we found out she had breast cancer. Literally a week. Like a week after we got married, I'm on the couch touching her boob like, any normal guy that just got married would want to do. And I'm like, oh, what's this? Like, it just didn't feel right. I felt a little lump there. And
you found it?
Yeah, I felt it. She didn't feel it. My gosh. I remember like vividly that experience sitting on the couch, just being married, and we're like looking forward to our long life together.
Yeah.
And but we didn't know it was breast cancer. We just felt it was just like just something. We'll get it checked out.
Sure.
So Stacy had her own business. She worked out of the house doing an environmental business, which wasn't making any money at the time. So I was supporting the household with my one income. Mm-hmm. Wasn't very great. Still under a lot of stress. And then we couldn't get the necessary testing done because we didn't have insurance. I had to let my guys go. I let my insurance lapse. I didn't have my insurance. I think I had Cobra, some cheap-ass Mass Health or whatever.
Yep.
And it certainly didn't cover her. And we weren't married. So what did we do? We started going through all the things in our head. Like, all right, we need to figure out a way to get health insurance for you so you can go in and get tested. So we had this cockamamie plan that we were going to do like this common law thing. So we went to Boston one day. We took a train ride. We went into Boston. And we filled out all this paperwork to become like I believe it was common law. marriage.
Oh, so you weren't married?
No, we weren't married.
Oh.
No, wait. This was. I'm trying to think how that. The time frame is like a blur.
Okay. Did you find out after you got married?
It must have been a couple weeks before we were married.
You assume? Okay.
Yeah, I got the time mixed up there a little bit, but we.
So you basically get this common law marriage, so you guys can get on a similar insurance plan.
Well, she finally went out and got a job so she could get insurance.
Okay.
Right. But it didn't. It was just a complicated mess.
Sure.
Bottom line is she got breast cancer, and it was something that we had to deal with for over 2 years. And during that 2 years that she was fighting it, I struggled because I couldn't manage. At that point, I did bring somebody back, by the way. Dan had come back to help me.
Yep. And
I was quite busy at the time. But there were days I didn't want to get out of bed. My wife, had to go into Boston a lot. She spent a lot of time in Boston. Unbelievable how much she had to go through to try to beat that. Sure. And so for 2.5 years we fought that. It didn't turn out well for her. And for months after losing her, I just had to try to find some reason to get up and go to work every day. And Dan was still plugging away. I'd go work with him most days. There'd be days I'd be like, Dan, I'm not coming in today. Or Dan, I get to go look at a job. When I wasn't looking at a job, I was just sitting at home wallowing in my own sorrow. And that was hard. That was a hard time. So I had to I literally made myself come up with a list of just a few things that might bring me joy,
Yep.
Like, it sounds silly, but
no, I bet.
What brings you joy? If I had to ask you right now, would you be able, if you didn't have kids and you weren't married and you worked all day and you didn't have a staff, it was just you and your wife just died and all this other crap, Nick, what brings you joy? There's not a lot there, It was kind of tough for me. I didn't have a lot. So I had to think of some things that I kind of thought might bring me joy. I don't have a big family, so it's not like I can hang out with my family a lot.
Yeah.
I had a couple of close friends, and that wasn't going to change. I keep them, but I don't know. I had this silly idea. I was at my friend's house one day, and I looked at her. It was around this time. It was like October, November, and I looked up, and she had this beautiful sign in the back of her house. It was one of these Christmas lights that she made to say the word joy. It literally said Joy, and it was right on her house, plugged in at night, and you could see it from anywhere in the neighborhood. Yeah, I'm like, wow, I need that. So I went home. Sounds crazy. I went home, bought some wire mesh fabric that she'd make found like a concrete floor with. Yeah, I got a string of lights. I shaped out the word joy and zip tied it to the wire mesh fabric, hung it on my house, plugged it in. It said joy right on the side of my house. It was about 3 feet by 3 feet high, huge. Yeah. Whole neighborhood could see it. I'm like, damn it! Every day I go to work, I'm gonna see that sign, and I didn't turn it off. I didn't unplug it or turn it off for like 3 or 4 months, and it was just a subtle reminder for me every day when I left in the morning. It was dark out. I leave at 6 in the morning to go to my jobs.
To remind you.
I get home at night. It was like 5 or 6 at night, driving home from Boston or wherever I was working, and I see it at night when I come home, and it just forced me to try to think of the things that bring me joy. So what brought me joy? I made out a list. I'm like, all right, maybe I can help out with some charities or do some things like that, or help out some old people, or I just had all these things. But then the one thing that stood out was photography. I'm like, you know what? We moved 4 times in 1 year. We bounced from house to house to house until we could afford to buy our own house. While my wife was battling cancer, we literally moved 4 times in 1 year, and somehow saved up the money to buy this house. I don't know how, because I wasn't making much money. And all my crap was in boxes, all my photography gear. Over the years, I purchased some pretty nice equipment just as a hobby.
So this was a previous hobby?
Yeah. I would take pictures of cows. Yeah, when I
Out of all things that you could just choose.
dude, when I got
Okay.
divorced, I moved into this little barn in
Okay.
Ipswich on a cow farm.
All right.
And I look out my back window, 2 feet from my bedroom window, there's cows going moo every morning. So what did I do? I take pictures of cows. I walk
Okay.
out in the field, hay bales,
Yeah.
countryside. You know, it's beautiful up there. I never took pictures of people.
Mm-hmm.
I never took pictures of houses.
Sure.
But I hired people to take pictures of my houses.
Right.
I spent thousands of dollars doing that every year, right?
Right.
Just like you probably do.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I just bought a camera because I thought it was cool and I liked to take pictures of cows. So I did. And then once I discovered that all my crap is in boxes, then I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm getting my camera gear out. I'm going out to the garage. I'm getting all my boxes and I'm going to unpack everything and see what I got. So I did. I put all my stuff out and, you know, it wasn't the greatest stuff. It was like amateur crap. But
Sure.
But at the time, it was pretty nice stuff.
Yeah.
My old 6 megapixel Olympus camera with a 200 zoom lens or whatever the heck that was.
Sure.
Gradually, I started dicking around, and I just somehow managed to get a little bit of skill that, like, I could talk a few people into letting me photograph them. Like, that was the weirdest thing. Like,
Yeah.
I had to ask people, can I photograph you? Will you come to my house and
Right.
sit in front of me so I can photograph you? And
Why people?
well, I don't know. I didn't like what else. I could go out and shoot cows, but
right.
like I wanted to become a photographer. Like
Right.
to me, that excited me. I wanted to learn how to do that.
But I mean, we've talked. There's different photographers.
Yeah,
You know, there's people that are really good at portrait, people
Yeah.
that are good at like wedding photography, event photography, sports. I mean,
Yeah.
all of that. I guess what gravitated you towards people? Do you think it was?
well, I like people. I mean,
Yeah.
I always liked people when I did my construction. I loved working with my clients. You know, I liked managing people. I like managing nice people.
Mm,
I like working for nice people. I like photographing nice people. I don't like mean people, so I don't attract those people.
sure.
I try to stay pretty positive every day, just like you and I were talking about earlier.
Imagine trying to photograph a mean person.
Oh,
What? Hey, I want to photograph you. No, I really need you to sit still and just smile.
do you
please.
know how many no's I got?
I'm sure.
Well, why would anybody want me to take their picture? I'm some construction dude.
Right. I
Like-
mean, I don't know. I don't know how many no's you got, but I can imagine there was a lot.
Do you?
But people also don't like being on camera.
No, not people that aren't models.
Right.
If I just like approached you or your wife or some random person and be like, hey, can I take a picture?
If you asked me hey, can I take you? I probably would have said no.
It's creepy.
Right. And it's and even knowing what you were trying to do, I would have just been like, I
Well,
don't-
why? Like,
yeah.
what are you doing with this pictures?
Right.
What? No.
And I feel, and that's a part of why I asked why you pick people, because people say no. There's the level, like, no cow is gonna say no, like no,
okay.
and
So there was one pivotal moment in why I chose people, and I just remember this, by the way. I just randomly met this woman. We went on a date, and we ended up dating for a little while. And one thing we did together was it was like, remember that day like 5-6 years ago when it was like 65 degrees on Christmas?
oh yeah, okay. I thought you were gonna ask about a random 65-degree day, and I'm gonna be like,
No,
Dave.
it was that one
I
day
don't
that was like warm out.
Remember that one day it was 65 degrees out? Yes.
It was crazy. Everyone remembers
Yeah, it was
that.
the warm Christmas. Yes.
Yeah, so
okay.
so we were dating. I had my gear. I'm like, why don't we just go out? It's going to be a nice day. Why don't we just go out and do a photo shoot? Because she's, is a very attractive woman. Like, she had stuff to wear.
Mhm.
Like, this is great. I don't have to go out and beg somebody to shoot with me. So she did. Shoot came out really well. It gave me some confidence that maybe I could be good at this. Because,
Yeah.
I cobbled together what equipment I had. We made it work. This is December 25th. I'm like, all right, I can do this.
Are you still working? Were you still working construction?
Oh
at this
yeah,
point?
yeah, totally. I worked construction for almost 3 years from when I started taking up the photography. Almost 3 years. I was doing both.
Yeah.
What I would do is I would literally go to work in the morning, leave the house at 6, get back at 6 at night, and all day from Monday through Friday, all I was thinking about was, all right, somehow managed to talk this person into coming up to the house on Saturday to shoot with me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I did that, but I didn't even have any like photographs.
And you're not getting paid for any of this.
No. All I had to show were the photographs that I took of this woman that I was dating.
Yeah.
And they were pretty decent, but they weren't like nothing wow.
Sure.
Like, show me something else. That's all I have.
Right.
So I would think about it all day long, like, oh, this is exciting. I want to immerse myself in this and learn how to take photographs and become really good at it and get better at it, and YouTube and taking classes and just everything. I was really into it. I literally every weekend I would have people. I would drive places to meet people to shoot them. I would have them up to my house to shoot them. I would go to group shoots where I would just meet all these people and get to photograph them.
Yep.
And I ended up meeting my wife, Kelly, there, right? Like, my amazing wife. I just can't believe how lucky I was to meet her. She lived in Connecticut.
You met her at a group shoot?
No, I just met her on Facebook.
Oh.
She was in a modeling group.
Okay.
I ended up photographing her at my studio space that I had made out of one of the rooms in my house,
Yep.
literally, and we went on to get married eventually. So, what was your question?
Why'd you get out of remodeling? You answered that.
Yeah.
So at what point did you decide that it was going to be your financial endeavor?
Well, I was still having problems finding the ambition to go to work every day and be excited about remodeling.
Sure.
I'm not going to lie to you. I was freaking good at what I did. Like, I would say I was one of the best there was, as far as like being able to be like the marketer,
Yep.
the guy doing the work, the estimator. Like, if you put all that together, I was pretty good. But I wasn't excited about it anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't get up every morning and think about it from 6 to 6 like I was starting to do with photography.
You relate that lack of excitement or loss of excitement to losing your wife.
I think it might have had something to do with it, but it was also everything else that was building up on me.
Well, I guess I wonder. I respectfully, I want to challenge that and think that you saw a bigger purpose in what you did day to day, in the sense that you had lost someone that you loved, you lost your wife, and the going to work for people that the majority of them might not appreciate really what you do or what you bring them. You know, there's always the good.
That was a constant struggle.
And having that struggle and having the amount of stress that construction in general puts on us, because you had made the comment earlier, it's not for the faint of heart, and it's one of the hardest industries or one of the hardest professions really to do. And I think, you know, relating back to Peter from Spire, the mental health side of it, where it is draining, the stress level that is very real. It's very, you know, amongst anyone in this industry, in the lower end market to the higher end market. And you went through a extremely tough time in your life that I'm guessing, I'm making accusations, that you realize that none of this is worth it. I need to do something that brings you joy, like the sign said on your house.
Yeah.
And construction never made that list.
Construction did not bring me joy.
Right.
I mean, I was good at it, and I liked like so many things about it, but it would just seem like I was trying too hard to enjoy it.
But I said it earlier. You did something about that every one of us I don't care who you are in this industry. I don't care what level you're at. You question, like I said earlier, I question it once a week. Whether how real that question is in my mind or how just like, oh, whatever, I'm frustrated. Why do I do this? It goes through our mind on a consistent basis. And you it got to a point where you questioned it so hard that you made a very hard decision, and you had some overlap, but you were basically building a pro bono portfolio for photography to a point where you, I'm guessing at some point, realized, all right, construction I'm literally done with at this point, and you're going to go all in, and this is going to be how I make money.
Yeah.
Was that figured out before you quit construction?
No. I don't have a history of figuring everything out before I do it.
Right. I don't think many of us do.
We try to.
Sure, but I remember starting my company, like, do you write a business plan? I'm like, no. I remember I went to the library and bought a book, How to Write a Business Plan.
Yep.
And I'm reading. I'm like, yo, this is gonna take way too long. I'm like, I'm just gonna go right into it.
Yep.
And I'll figure it out. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. I don't think having a business plan would have prevented some of the struggles that I have went through.
Neither would it have mine.
But like, I don't know. Maybe I would have gotten a loan from a bank, but that's what I remember that being the conversation. Well, you gotta get a line of credit, and you need a business plan proving like your business works. I'm like, I don't know if it works. I'm hoping it works.
I'm not going to knock people that have business plans.
No,
I think it's a great
it.
idea. I mean, there were so many things that I didn't do well, and part of the problem, part of the lack of success on my end, if you want to call it that, was because I didn't learn those. I didn't either take the time to learn them. I didn't invest the time necessary to learn them, but I didn't learn those things that I needed to learn along the way to be successful in the long run. I had a good run. I did a lot of good things, and I did a lot of I made a lot of bad mistakes, a lot of bad hires. I picked a lot of bad customers.
Do you think, looking back, you could have done things differently where you ended up feeling joy in construction? Or do you think inevitably construction was going to whittle you down?
I think it was going to whittle me down. I still love it. You know, there isn't a day that goes by where I don't check my remodeling dude page, and I still can't walk by a Festool rack and not look at them, and when I still have all my tools, and I have like 3 rooms in my house that I'm currently remodeling. We'll see how that goes. But before I decided to try photography, I was, even before I lost my wife, I was kind of thinking maybe I could eventually become a building inspector, because I kind of had a good cross section of knowledge.
Sure.
Maybe a home inspector. I don't know. That didn't excite me. But the big thing I thought I would be really, really good at was teaching, because I'm an exceptional teacher when it comes to like showing people how to do things.
Yeah. In
sort of a nice, like unassuming way, not to make people feel bad. Like, here, maybe try it this way. Have you thought about doing it this way? Like, let me show you what works well for me. So I always excelled at that when it came to like my crew and showing sort of the newbies how to do things.
Do you do that now?
Well, for photography?
No, building.
Do I teach people? No. But what I did do is I went out and got my license to teach when I still had my business. I spent months studying.
Would you do that now?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't really think
it wouldn't bring joy.
Nah, I think that ship has passed. Sure. I went to, my plan was to maybe be a vocational teacher. Yeah. Because I don't have a degree that would allow me to teach in secondary school other than a vocational school. Mm-hmm. But that seemed like a good avenue. Maybe I could do that, I didn't pick photography for the money. Right. I think eventually it will be very lucrative for me, but at this point, I think it's been hard financially. The first 3 years is always the toughest. You get through those first 3 years, even in construction, pretty much any business, you get through that first 3 years, and chances are you're going to make it.
Do you see the similar growth as you did in construction, in the sense like you're incrementally?
Yeah, big time. Yeah,
because am I wrong in thinking that it's primarily time? Like, you buy equipment, but it's kind of your expenses for photography, like your overhead, I guess, is fairly low.
It's extremely low.
And it's really just time commitment.
Exactly.
And I'm sure, we've worked with you. We work with Todd Wilson, Sabrina, Doug, who's on staff now. Like, that side, that is the side that people don't see. We spent 3 hours in the freezing cold photographing our Newton project, but that's 3 hours, and then you spent I don't know how many hours editing.
It's usually 1 hour in the field, 1 hour of editing.
Right.
So that was a 6-hour job, $650 bucks.
It's well, now you're advertising.
Plus driving.
Right, but I guess what I'm getting at is that's the side people don't see is like it really is very time consuming. Like Doug, I know when we brought him full time, I was like, walk me through your day because I don't know.
Is he video?
Yeah.
That's even harder.
And now I'm like, how long does this, like, we sat down and I was trying to, I had this master list of like, all right, now that you're full time, I want this. And he's like, that's 120 hours worth of work in a week.
Whoa.
And I'm like, okay, wait, let's back up. How long does a video this long take?
What can I get for $4,000?
Right. I'm like, just walk me through 40 hours. Like, how do I, he's like, I'll never hit 40 hours if we're producing more than X amount video per week. So we're like, all right, let's map this out. Let's figure out how to be efficient.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I remember he was like, well, one way we could be efficient is you be better on camera so we don't have to edit as much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, got it.
Hence the B-roll Instagram page. I love that page.
This week was terrible. We were doing so well. And then we got to the last like 5 minutes of that Nick on Nick interview. And I literally couldn't say anything. I just kept over and over messing up, and Nick, I'm surprised he didn't put it in the blooper reel because Nick was like, "This is gonna make an amazing blooper reel."
I'm surprised. Every time I see your videos, I think they're so polished. I didn't realize so many mistakes were made in the background.
I mean, they're minor, and it's not a huge ordeal. It used to be a huge ordeal, like to the point where I would have to reset. I couldn't. I was so verklempt. Like it was just I was so bogged down, and I was so I felt just beaten. Now I make it, and I'm just immediately I re-say it right away, and I don't stop, I don't do anything. I just because I'm like I know he's got it. I've watched him take a crappy interview that I've done and make it into a polished video, where it's like I don't have to like I'm just keep rolling. If I mess up a word, just immediately redo it.
Have you been on site with Kevin, seeing him work?
He's a machine. He
don't feel bad because you look at guys like him that do it every single day.
Oh yeah, and that's once you realize that, and that's what I tell my guys. Like, I don't know if you've seen the shift. I'm putting more focus on them. I want me to be the guy that is hosting it, but I want them to be the professional. Mm-hmm. And like we do the 59-second clips for Instagram, and it's like. I don't even want to be on that. I want it to be all the guys.
I've been loving those.
And that, whether they're talking or whether they're just doing something, focus on them all the way through a task because people love process video. And this is about the team. But yeah, one of the producers at This Old House was saying how Kevin just he takes his lines, reads them, and just like immediately memorizes them. And they're like, he's a machine. He reads it and he's like, yep, got it good. And I did a segment with them for Rockwell in this Old House studio. And oh my God, it was just like.
And you're like, blah, blah, blah.
Over and over. And I watched the video and I could see my face flush because I was getting so aggravated. Yep. I'm like, I could feel my face get hot. I was like, sorry. And they're like, no, you're good. You're good. I'm like, no.
I get the same way when I'm on video. Like I just can't. Like I'm pretty comfortable in front of a mic, but you get me in front of a video, and it's a different ball game.
It is like it's not. I'm trying to. I saw a kid from college. I was talking to on the way here. He had called me about one of my subs, and he was talking about video, and he's like, I love that your whole team's into it, and like they're super comfortable on camera, and I'm like.
They're probably not.
Dude, they're not.
It's hard to get the guys to buy in, isn't it?
I think I have an advantage because everyone that's come to work for me knows what they're getting into.
Yeah, because they probably found you on Instagram.
Every one of them. Like everyone. Doug I went to college with, Everyone else has been some form of communication through Instagram. Mike, my first hire, he commented on one of my photos. I said, "Hey, when are you coming to work for me?" And he messaged me. He was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Let's meet. Let's talk." It was totally joking, like not joking, but like, just being casually funny, and it turned into him being the longest employee. But some guys are definitely into it. Like Tom, who unfortunately left us this year. He moved back to Wyoming. He was with me. Geez, I don't even know if it was a month. I was like, "Hey, we're doing this thing. We're gonna film. I'd love for you to be on camera." And he's like, "Okay, yeah, I can do that." This, you would never expect it. Like Doug was like, "This is gonna be tough. Like I really need you to feed him natural."
Really?
Like military kid, totally. Like it was like the camera didn't exist, and I was like, "Dude, crush the video." And he had actually a lot of successful videos.
And you left it like right after that, like a month later?
No. He was with us for a year and a half. Okay. 2 years. It must have been. I think it was 2 years. And yeah, he unfortunately left us. He went back to Wyoming. He was a good kid.
That's tough losing a top guy, top employee.
Yeah.
When you have 5, 10, 14, it's not as big of a hit. But when you have when you have two people and you lose one, it's like, whoa.
Right.
I have to put
my father and I had this conversation the other day about, like, God forbid someone left. And I think about when Tom left and when he, we were sitting like this talking for well over an hour and just kind of running through like, "Hey, plan, this is the logistics. I'm thinking that we'll wrap up, a month from now on this job, blah, blah, blah." And he's just like letting me talk. And right when I was done, he's like, "So I gotta let you know." And I was like, "Holy crap." He's like, "I'm moving back to Wyoming." And I'm like, "No." But yeah, it's a hit. Like there's no hiding that. But I think, being not react, like, I don't want to say it in the condescending or cocky way, but it's like it happens, right? Like you can't let that one person be the glue. Like I hope that I'm not that one. Like God forbid something happened to me, I would hope that this company could continue.
Do you really though? Do you think it could right now? Like if something
right now, I don't think. I mean, I don't think it could because we've never talked about it. If we had a conversation where it was like, "Hey, God forbid Nick dies or something happens, right? And they can't run the company. I want this to continue. These are I think they could figure it out."
Can I make a suggestion to you?
Sure.
I think this is a conversation that you need to have with your wife, and that you start thinking about this dead seriously. Put this in the writing. Start making these conversations happen in real life with your wife, because I've had similar things come up in my business life where someone that I knew didn't have those conversations, and then they died, and then their spouse said, for example, I had an architect friend that fed us, 90% of our work. Mm-hmm. And this just happened to be in 2008 when things hit the fan. He died. Like he just went to Boston one night and died. He was like 45 years old.
Oh my gosh.
The most amazing guy. Like I love this guy. He was a great architect, good friend. He just died. And like he didn't have that conversation with his wife. Like I would want this to continue.
Yeah.
So literally the next day, Alex is out of business. His wife says, I don't want to carry this on. My business dropped off. You can imagine how much business I lost.
90%, yeah.
Yeah. So that plus the economy. Well, anyways, in your situation, I think it would be a good conversation to have with your better half.
Maybe I've never thought of it, but
yeah, it's almost like putting a will together. You got to just have those conversations because you don't know.
Because I didn't even think of the legal side of it, where it's like where my team, the biggest thing that they would need to replace from a tactical thing would be the sales, right?
Maybe, but probably not.
Well, that if I'm the one doing, what I'm getting at is I'm the one doing all the sales. No one else is bringing sales.
Right.
So that would be like the person, quote unquote, that they would need to replace.
Yeah.
But I've never thought of it in the sense that, God forbid something happened, my wife would kind of have the legal jurisdiction.
There's probably a good chance that she wouldn't want to take on the burden of keeping this thing alive. It's a big ship.
Right.
So maybe it's a good idea to, even for some of your listeners, to consider that. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of businesses that are in the same position you are with the size of the company. And
sure.
Even just having a will, like how many people don't have a will? Probably most people don't have a will when they're 40 years old. Yeah. Nothing's going to happen till they're at least 70, right?
Right.
And then when they do die, their wife's or their husband's left holding the bag. And I mean, this is coming from somebody that had to pick up the pieces after losing a loved one.
Yeah.
We did not have a will. And the other, this is not a construction
but that's okay.
Subject, but I'll tell you one thing, anybody listening, get your life insurance. Like, go out tomorrow. If you don't have life insurance, go out tomorrow and get it. I don't care what it takes. Because if something happens and you or your wife get diagnosed with cancer, you will never ever get life insurance again.
That's one of the first things I don't even know why I did it. Well, actually, I do, because my wife's friend was selling it.
There you go.
But that was actually one of the first things I did when I started my company.
Yeah.
And there's tremendous, like, especially speaking to owners, there's tremendous benefits to doing it that side.
The younger you are, the better.
Yeah.
The cheaper it is.
Like, I don't know the technical details, but it's like pre-taxed.
Yeah.
Like you're I don't know. It's not funneled through, like, you're not getting paid for the paycheck, pulling your taxes out, then putting it in. It's being done.
But these are all things that people don't think about when things are good.
Yeah.
The economy's good.
Relate this right back to marketing. When things are good and people aren't spending money on our advertising because, no, I got plenty of work.
Yep,
it's
I'm healthy.
Same thing. It's like, no, I don't need a will. I'm healthy. I got plenty of time.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, but what happens when that time gets close? Like, you won't have a plan.
Is that stuff that, people like Sean and stuff talk about with their customers, with their
Sean?
like Van Dyke? Do they sit down and like have these intimate conversations with their clients, like their builder clients? Some of these like advisors.
That I don't know.
Coaches. To me, that seems like something that ought to be talked about more. Yeah. Just like mental health, same kind of thing. Like, no one wants to talk about death.
Right.
But it's a reality.
I didn't think that's where this podcast was going.
You know what? It's a big part of my life. I don't mind sharing it. I don't mind talking about it.
No, I think I mean, you're absolutely right. It's something that we don't think of until it happens.
Yeah. And I bet a lot of us builders and ex-builders are probably going to, have things happen because, God knows I've inhaled enough fiberglass and asbestos and silica and whatever else on my jobs.
Sure.
I'm surprised I'm not like cancerous right now.
Right.
My dad smoked, I was subjected to his secondhand smoke for his entire life, basically, that I knew him. So yeah, get that life insurance.
What's your, I'm switching the subject.
No problem.
So now you're full-time photography.
Yes. So what happened was in 2017, that tipping point that you talked about happened, where I woke up one day and I literally gave myself permission to take the lettering off the van and start selling off some of the tools and get rid of the van.
Was Dave still with you?
No.
Dan.
No, Dan had given his notice a few months prior. Yeah, no problem. Dan's still great, by the way.
Yeah.
He's doing well.
So he left on his own.
He left because that was that time where I just was really struggling. I couldn't keep Dan busy 40 hours a week. I wasn't out selling jobs like I should have been. Mm-hmm. My heart wasn't into it. So it affected everyone, not just me.
Yeah.
Dan left. I finally gave myself permission. I literally, I can remember spending 3 days. You saw my van. I had a lot of letters on it. It was on the front, the back, the sides. The only place I didn't have it on, like you had, it was on the top. But that lettering had been on that van for the better part of 10 years.
Sure.
That vinyl lettering is not rated for 10 years.
Right.
It did not come off. I spent 3 days peeling that lettering off that van. I was committed to letting that go.
So you stripped it to paint it. I mean, stripped it to sell it.
I stripped it, took all the tools out, literally put a sign up, parked it out in front of my house, and some plumber came by and bought it. And I just completely rebuilt the undercarriage of that van with tube steel, and I had the nice lock system put in that you knew about.
Did he like it? The lock?
I don't even think he cared.
Oh.
It wasn't
like, whatever, dude.
It wasn't a selling feature.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gave myself permission, and I did it. And I didn't know it was going to be such a hard time. I thought I was going to get business. Social media was going to be great. Everyone's going to be calling me. I was going to do events and weddings and automotive photography, and I was going to get... At that time, honestly, I did not think I was going to be doing architectural because I didn't think I was good enough. You know, I have a couple of mentors that I would consider mentors. They maybe they don't know it. Guys like Michael J. Lee, who's an incredible photographer. Eric Roth.
Yep.
You know, these are people that I've actually never hired Michael, but I've hired Eric, and I've hired some of the other big photographers around. And I always attended the shoots. I always really got into like the technical part of it. I'd dissect what they were doing, watch what they were doing, and I just got excited about it. So I did a couple of shoots for homes on my own, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I could do this. And I needed to upgrade my equipment. The stuff that I had wasn't on par with what I need to be.
Yeah.
And I could still upgrade again. It's a constant battle. But I have some really nice full-frame cameras. I've invested in all the lenses, the high-end lenses that I need to do my job, the flash equipment. It's been a big investment, but man, I'm getting really good at the photography for homes.
It was interesting because I remember early on when you were doing both, and I'll be honest, I was like, what is
it
going
confusing?
on? Yeah, I was like, is he starting a photography business? Is he in construction? And you know, knowing like a little bit about the personal side of your life, and all right, maybe this is just like his coping.
It's going through a phase.
And then all of a sudden it was like, I'm selling the truck. I'm like, okay, definitely saw that coming. But it was, you know, you had very, I think, interesting portrait photography. There was a lot of like costumes or themes, or it was just very interesting.
Yeah, different. Some risque stuff.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, like, you know,
right.
Not totally my style, but I dig it. Like, I like the fact that like he's invested in it.
You do you, right?
Right, exactly. And then all of a sudden, I remember you posting some architectural photography. I'm like, wait a second.
When was that? Was that like a couple of years ago?
You're way better with your time frames.
Do you remember? Do you happen to remember what what it might have been? I
want to say it was a kitchen.
Okay.
And I remember seeing it. I'm like, holy crap! I'm like, there's a distinct difference between someone that's good at photographing portraits and someone that's photographing space. And I remember seeing it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep tabs on this and see how this unfolds. And watching you post more about the architectural, like, I respected the portrait. It just wasn't like anything I was interested in, like, seeing.
Headshots.
Like, right. It wasn't, you know, it just wasn't me. There was no reason for me to look at it. But as I saw the architectural stuff unfold, I'm like, this makes sense because you were in the industry. You knew, like, my biggest thing is if I'm not on site for the shoot, like, communicating the shot that I need. It's like, no, I spent 14 months on this project. I need a shot from the left corner of the living room looking up the island because it shows how we built that table.
Right.
And then it's like, no, I needed you to be like 6 inches to the... But you know how a space, like what is important in a space. Like today we shot Lake Drive Twilight. And you're like, do you want to line up the window mullions with the lights on the inside? I'm like, no. And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, what? He's totally right. Like, I have to do that. And we're shifting the camera around. And you're making that connection between me looking over photographer's shoulder, like Sabrina, like she's amazing. She takes amazing architectural photography. I love working with her.
Mm-hmm.
She does capture it. She captures it great when I'm not there, just not how I would have wanted it.
It's
all the time. Like sometimes she's on part, and I hope she's listening, and I hope she knows that. But having the connection to construction and then looking at it through a lens, you're looking for the same thing that I'm hoping that I can get out of a photo.
I hope that's the case.
Same thing with Todd.
Hasn't always been that way, but I try. You know, I think it's great that you're at the shoots, or that you have been for the couple that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people will just send me to the job, meet me there, and say, these are the shots I want, and then leave. And that's hard. Even though I can understand what you're looking for, it's not always possible for me to know.
I wouldn't be surprised if I have 15,000 photos in my Dropbox.
Damn.
And because between Todd and Sabrina for the majority, now I have some of yours, and then
you have 4 pictures
now,
now.
and now I have and other photographers that have worked with other designers. But Todd I've been working with literally since I got engaged to my wife.
Because he does weddings too, right?
That's what his focus was. And I remember I reached out to him. I said, Todd, what do you do during the week? He's like, I edit photos. I'm like, would you want to photograph some of my work? He's like, sure. And he came out and he had this interesting, he has a very, not an architectural, but an interesting way of capturing moments, which is what weddings are about, right? Capturing the moment. And whether it's my guys working or he pays a lot of attention to what I talk about in stories and Instagram. So when he comes on site, he looks for those things.
Right.
And I love seeing it because I look at it, I'm like, I know exactly what he was thinking. And he always quizzes me. He's like, hey, what do you think I was thinking about on this photo? And I would say it, and he's like, yeah, because I remember you talking about such and such. And I don't use a lot of his photos, and I will, in telling my story one day. But I see a big difference when I'm on site with him than if I send him rogue. The photos come out great, but they're not all like. I'm not always getting like. I'm not getting the story out of it. I'm getting his side of it, which I love. I just can't use that then to promote because it doesn't. I can't. I don't know how to tell a story around that photo, and that's the whole point of Instagram, right?
I don't think people realize how technical taking photos is. Like taking proper photos of an interior is very technical.
Yeah.
So if I'm on a job site, most of my focus is on composition, lighting, mostly lighting, composition, making sure that it all looks good, focus, sharp focus. And then, so now I have to add in trying to think about what the client might like. That's just like a whole nother element. And I shoot alone. I don't have an assistant that comes out with me and does all the legwork. So I have to do all that too. And I have to go home and edit. So it's a lot to take on, but it doesn't bring me much stress, which I love. I love it. I love it because of that. That's one reason I love it.
Yeah.
When I'm working, it pays well. I like that part of it. I like the notoriety it brings. If people see images on social media mostly, and they get excited about that, and it spawns new projects. And I mean,
I love the fact that, and this isn't me taking credit for bringing photography to construction, but I love the fact that I see more people investing in it. I've invested in professional photography since it was just me, and I've always seen the value in it. And, I love promoting that and then watching someone else do it and watching someone else take it, take advice from that and realizing, your work, the way you portray your work and how professional your work looks has huge impact on whether people take you seriously or not.
Absolutely. Yep, I believe it.
It's, as simple as a website, which every single person that has been on this podcast says, oh, my website's under construction. That's the first thing people are looking at. If they're on their phone, social media, sure, but I don't want to go down the road of, like, we've talked about this before, is, how important photography is in the sense, like, I promote it because everyone knows it by this this point. You know, if you want to be a professional in this industry, you need to have professional representation of your work.
It's just like having workers' comp. You know, you can get by without it, but it's going to catch up to you.
Right.
And you're not going to go beyond a certain point unless you have a good representation of your work.
Where do you want to see the photography go? Like, do you want to focus more towards architectural, or do you enjoy the...
Yeah, I do. I don't want to give up what the other parts of my business, too. I do a lot of events and a lot of portraits and headshots. But I think the money's in photography for architectural, yeah.
And keeping the headshot and the...
I think it's kind of a complementary part of my business.
Yeah.
And it's more just a skill way to learn new skills is to photograph people and work with new different lighting techniques.
Yeah.
And a lot of it applies to homes too. I'll end it with this. I kind of told myself a couple of years ago that I said to me, my goal is within 5 years to be one of the most sought after photographers in the country.
Dang.
I don't know how I'm going to make that happen, but I've said it and I'm going to try to do it. And I feel like I'm a lot less than halfway to my goal, but I still feel like it's
What do you think the biggest
attainable.
thing, what would be the biggest hurdle that you think you'll need to?
I just got to get I got to be in the right place at the right time and catch the right eye, because although my work isn't the best out there, it's better than a lot of people. And I feel like if I can just get in front of the right person that sees it and gives me that big break. And
I love that you're on the same page with me, is that you want your stuff in magazines, but I almost feel like that would be cheating if you're constantly pushing it to be in a magazine, because then it's like, you're forcing it to be in front of everyone. I want to naturally, it's like paying for social media followers.
yeah,
I want this to be natural, and I want it to be because I worked my ass off to get this.
but those kind of shots don't usually end up in magazines. They don't just usually naturally happen. They do sometimes,
Yeah.
but it's usually it's driven by the design team.
Sure.
Have you experienced that mostly?
Yeah.
Like the job you just got on the Globe there, was that driven by Mary?
To be in the Globe?
Well, that picture of that project, who drove that project? Who drove that to get it in submitted to the magazine?
Sabrina.
So there you go.
I mean, I don't know actually what the conversation was, but I think Sabrina. I mean, that room is amazing.
It's pretty awesome.
And Sabrina definitely looks at things and says, "Yeah, that's gonna go in a magazine." And it's funny. I'll get a sneak peek of that photo, but it will immediately follow up, be like, "You cannot post this. I know this is gonna hurt."
Yep.
And Sabrina's super nice.
She'll
about
say
it.
that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, "You can't. This is gonna be in the Globe." And then I'm looking. I'm like, I love it. I love the fact that it's in the Globe. Bought a bunch of copies. All the guys get it. I'm like, I'm gonna post it. Like, I hope it goes into Dwell magazine or another magazine.
Dude, I saw that picture posted today by by the Salem Plumbing Group.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't get tagged in that.
Did some of that stuff come Salem Plumbing?
Yes, it did.
Well, that's why then. I didn't know that, but I saw it on their page
I'm
today.
gonna have to check today.
Yeah. See, that's.
I won't do it now.
You know, you're doing good when you get.
No, that's one compliment we get a lot is that we give credit to where credit is due. Like the plumbers, like he immediately, like that, we couldn't have pulled that vanity off if it wasn't for the plumbers being willing to work with us on figuring out how to hide the traps. You know, it's those people that we've attracted to working with us that make all this possible.
And the fact that you celebrate them just makes them want to do better work for you. I can see that. It's pretty obvious.
Cool.
I enjoy talking with you, man.
Likewise. I'm glad we recorded it.
Can I get home to my wife now?
Sure. It's late. It is. Oh, it's not bad. It's 9:03.
Hey, we did it.
Too bad. You get like an hour and 15.
Yeah, we'll call it that.
Sure.
I'm sorry that we missed the other two guys.
I know. Well, it is right before Thanksgiving. And wait. Yeah, I was going to say. I definitely just lost track of time. Sorry. It's before Thanksgiving. And unfortunately, Tyler had a blowout on his truck. I'm losing my voice, if you can't tell. You guys can complain about it in the reviews. And Johnny had a hockey game.
He's really into the hockey, isn't he?
Well, he coaches a lot. So when it's his own game, like if he's playing, I think he's more apt to skip, but you can't skip the kids.
No, I like that he's committed.
Yeah, and and unfortunately, it's not a consistent schedule, so that sometimes makes it hard. All right, guys, so this is the end of the podcast. We are going to pull up a couple reviews. We'll see what we have up here. We typically read a few. Dang, it doesn't look like we have any new ones from last week.
Reviews or questions?
Reviews. Well, then I'm going to have to skip this week.
Maybe it's they were scared away by the $800,000 shacks in Hawaii. Was that what it was? Was that?
Yeah,
The
in
gypsum?
Oahu.
Yeah.
Not what I expected.
No, that was
I'm
crazy.
very interested in that market now.
You want to move down to Hawaii?
I tell my wife all the time that would be where I would move.
You're talking about going to Jersey for some installs. I think you should send Zach to Hawaii, Oahu.
To set up shop.
Well,
Dave, I appreciate you being on. I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's late. Where can people find you?
They can find me on social media at Born Imagery. Born with a B, not born with a P. I've had a few people ask me that. So bornimagery.com is my website, and I appreciate you having me, Nick. I enjoyed talking with you.
Likewise. Should they check out your remodeling, dude?
If they want to. I'm sure everyone's already connected to me. I do have a lot of followers.
All right. I think you're more inappropriate on that one.
Yeah, I kind of am.
That's cool. All right, guys. Well, as always, we appreciate you listening. You can find us on the web, themoderncraftsman.org. Make sure you guys are emailing us, info@themoderncraftsman.org. And please do not forget about the free event coming up at Cape Cod Lumber, December 12th at Lombardo's from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The website, capecodlumber.com/build-on-expo. I think we're well into the mid-200 range, and we are trying to get this up to 500 attendees. Again, it is a free event. Make sure you check it out. _Modern Craftsman on Instagram, and make sure you guys hit us up with a review, because this week we don't have any new ones, and I'm slightly disappointed I don't get to read them, because I do so well at that as I'm losing my voice. As always, guys, take care.